All right, today we're talking about something you've probably walked past in the grocery store 1,000 times. But I bet you have no idea about its absolutely epic secret history. Yep, we're talking about the eggplant. So for most of us, especially in North America, we call it an eggplant. And that name actually makes a lot of sense, believe it or not. It comes from way back when the most popular varieties in Europe were these little white things that looked, well, exactly like a chicken egg. Pretty straightforward, right? But, hop on a plane and the name changes. If you're in France or the UK, you're asking for an aubergine. Head over to India or South Asia and it's a brinjal. All these different names are like little breadcrumbs, hinting at this incredible journey it took across the entire globe. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay, but here's where it gets really weird. This is our first big surprise. We cook it like a vegetable, right? It's in the vegetable aisle. But from a purely scientific point of view, it's not a vegetable at all. So what on earth is it? Get this. It's a berry. I know, it sounds crazy, but botanically speaking, a berry is just the fruit that develops from a single flower's ovary. And that definition puts the eggplant in the exact same family as tomatoes and chili peppers, which, yep, are also fruits we all think of as vegetables. So now that we know what it is, let's talk about how it got to our plates. And this is not just some simple farming story. It's a journey that spans millions of years, multiple continents. We're talking giant prehistoric animals and ancient trade routes. This is an epic. Okay, so let's trace this incredible path. It all starts around 2 million years ago on the African savannas. Its wild ancestors were snacked on and spread around by these massive megaherbivores. We're talking giant elephants. Then, in what scientists think was this one single amazing event, the plant somehow made the jump all the way from Africa to tropical Asia. Wild. Okay, let's fast forward a long time. By 59 BCE, we finally see the first written proof that it's being farmed in China. From there, it hitches a ride on the famous Silk Road, and by the 14th century, it finally makes its way to Europe and, believe it or not, back to Africa, but this time as a fully domesticated crop. What a round trip. But you've got to understand the eggplant that those ancient farmers first started playing with was, well, it was nothing like what we buy today. It was small, it was tough, and honestly, it probably tasted pretty awful. It took centuries of human creativity to turn it into the food we know and love. Just look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the wild ancestor Solanum insanum, and insanum is a good word for it. It was covered in these sharp, prickly spines, and the fruit was tiny, round, and super bitter. But then look what we did. Through domestication, farmers patiently selected the plants that were less spiky, had way bigger fruits, and a much milder, even kind of sweetish flavor. It's a complete makeover. And what's so cool is that we now know this domestication happened independently in at least 2 different places. Over in China, you've got ancient texts from the 1st century BC, showing farmers were already trying to breed for bigger, sweeter fruit. And then, around the same time in India, you see Sanskrit texts that talk about creating this huge diversity of eggplants for all kinds of different recipes. It just goes to show how different cultures shaped the exact same plant to fit their own unique needs. All right, let's shift gears and head into the kitchen, because the thing that makes eggplant so amazing to cook with, it all comes down to its unique internal structure. It's basically a biological sponge, and that, my friends, is its culinary superpower. So, if you could zoom way in on eggplant flesh with a microscope, this is what you'd see. These really big cells with super thin walls, and they're surrounded by this massive network of little air pockets. That's why a raw eggplant feels so light for its size, right? It's mostly air. And this spongy, porous structure is what makes it an absolute champion at soaking up all those delicious oils, sauces, and spices when you cook it. Okay, so if you've ever cooked with eggplants, someone has probably told you to salt it first. Well, there's some really cool science behind that tip. First, the salt kicks off this process called osmosis, which literally pulls water out of the eggplant cells. That water carries away some of those bitter-tasting compounds, which is great. But here's the real magic. As that water leaves, the whole structure, the cells and all those air pockets, it collapses. The sponge basically squeezes itself shut. So then, when you go to fry it, it absorbs way less oil, and you get that perfect, creamy, rich texture everyone loves. But the eggplant story is far from over. And here's the twist. The very thing that made it so delicious, all that careful domestication, has also made it incredibly vulnerable. Today, the eggplant is actually a crop in crisis. And this chart shows the problem perfectly. It's something scientists call a domestication bottleneck. Think about it. For centuries, we've been breeding eggplants for just a few specific traits, like being big and not better. In doing that, we've thrown away a ton of its genetic diversity. Its wild relatives out there have this massive genetic library, while our cultivated ones, they're working with just a few books. That makes them really fragile. So what does this lack of genetic diversity actually mean? Well, it means modern eggplants really struggle to adapt to new problems. They've got a really long growing season, which makes them a sitting duck for nasty pests like the fruit and shoot borer. And of course, they are extremely susceptible to the stresses of climate change. We're talking extreme heat, long droughts, and heavy flooding. But this is where the story takes a really hopeful turn. To save the eggplants, scientists are actually going all the way back to the beginning of its story. They're looking for a hero that's been waiting in the wings this whole time. And this quote really says it all. The greatest source of untapped diversity are the wild relatives of our domesticated food crops. The solution to the eggplant's biggest problems is hidden in the DNA of its own tufted wild family. They're called crop wild relatives, or CWRs for short. The best way to think of them is like the hardy, street-smart cousins of our kind of pampered farm crops. I mean, these guys have spent millions of years surviving in harsh environments without any help from us. Their genes are basically a treasure trove of code for resilience against drought, heat, pests, everything that's threatening our modern eggplants. And this isn't just a theory. We already have proof that this works. Take a look at the beet eggplant success story in Bangladesh. Scientists created a new variety with a natural pest resistance gene. And the results? They're just incredible. Farmers cut their pesticide use by over 60%. Their net profits shot up by 128%. And the risk of human toxicity from all that spraying dropped by more than half. This is a huge win. So what this all boils down to is pretty amazing. By crossbreeding our modern domesticated eggplants with their tough-as-nails wild relatives, scientists are creating a whole new generation of what they call interspecies hybrids. These are, quite literally, the climate-proof eggplants of tomorrow, built to thrive on a hotter, more challenging planet. So the eggplant's own wild cousins are saving it from a changing climate. It's an amazing comeback story. And it really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? What other secrets, what other life-saving solutions are just hiding out there in the wild relatives of all the other foods we eat every single day?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.